Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's Voice to the World. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Pakistan hands back an Indian paramilitary soldier who was in its custody since 23rd of April. India to set up a new semiconductor unit with Taiwan's Foxconn in Greater Noida on the outskirts of New Delhi. The US to lift sanctions on Syria, restore relations with its new government led by a former Al-Qaeda terrorist. And the Kremlin says Ukraine peace process in Turkiye are on, but doesn't say who is going. All right, up first, the big news of the day. Border Security Force jawan Purnam Kumar Shaw was handed over to India today. The constable inadvertently crossed over into Pakistani territory while on operational duty in the area of Firozpur sector on 23rd April around 11:50 hours India time and was detained by the Pakistani Rangers. He had been in the custody of the Pakistani Rangers since then. The constable was handed back to the Border Security Force through the joint checkpost Atari in Amritsar at 10:30 a.m. local time. The handover was conducted peacefully and in accordance with established protocols. The repatriation of BSF constable has become possible because of the consistent efforts of the BSF through regular flag meetings with the Pakistani Rangers and through other communication channels. The Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, along with the Chief of the Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, and Chief of the Naval Staff, Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi, called on President Draupadi Murmu and briefed her about Operation Sindoor. The President commended the valour and dedication of the armed forces that made India's response to terrorism a sterling success. India's Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, joined by General Upendra Dwivedi, Chief of the Indian Army, Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi, Chief of the Naval Staff, and India's Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal A.P. Singh, shared insights on Operation Sindoor's success. The top brass emphasized strategic clarity, multi-domain execution, and enhanced jointness. Deliberations with veterans and think tanks highlighted the future of integrated warfare, underscoring India's evolving defence capabilities. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar held talks with his Austrian counterpart Beat Meyen-Reitzinger. The minister congratulated her on appointment. In a post on X, he wrote that they agreed on zero tolerance of terrorism and firm opposition to nuclear blackmail. Also discussed excellent bilateral ties and the Ukraine conflict. How could India hit 13 targets, including 8 air bases, so precisely inside various strategic locations in Pakistan? How did Pakistan fail so miserably? These questions have rattled experts and analysts across the world. Let's now decode India's defence mastercraft, the Indian Wall of Self-Defence, Akash Tir.
It was Akash Tir which stopped all Pakistani inbound airborne drones, missiles, micro-UAVs and other loitering munitions and prevented them from entering the Indian airspace. Akash Tir is probably the first operational AI war cloud built entirely without any foreign components or satellite dependencies. It successfully provided common real-time target interception, tracked and indulged in drone warfare. It integrates various radar systems, sensors and communication technologies into a single operational framework. Akash Tir is part of the broader C4ISR, which is command, control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance framework, working in coordination with other systems like ISRO satellites and NAVIC GPS. Akash Tir's brilliance lies not in brute force but in intelligent warfare. Traditional models of air defense rely heavily on ground-based radars, human-monitored systems, and surface-to-air missile batteries triggered by command chains. Akash Tir breaks that mold. Its technology allows for monitoring of low-level airspace in battle areas and efficient control of ground-based air defense weapon systems. Akash Tir is capable of intercepting and neutralizing hostile UAVs without detection, using no active radar signatures. Reports indicate that during last Sunday night engagements, the drone attack coordinated by Akash Tir entered sensitive command zones undetected, leaving Pakistan's US-supplied AWACS and ground radar systems paralyzed. Akash Tir adds a new chapter to our strategic doctrine, indicating a shift from defensive posturing to proactive retaliation against terror threats. Akash Tir's presence in our military assets exudes confidence that it gives a clear edge over terror-sponsoring state Pakistan's air defense capabilities. Experts across the world are now terming Akash Tir as a seismic shift in warfare strategy. With this, India has emerged as the first non-Western nation to successfully integrate its autonomous drone swarms, indigenous satellite surveillance, and AI battlefield coordination into a single real-time combat platform. In one line, Akash Tir has demonstrated that it sees, decides and strikes faster than anything the world has fielded. Unlike conventional systems, Akash Tir functions autonomously with drones capable of altering flight path, selecting targets and coordinating strikes without operator input. The most disruptive element of Akash Tir is its combat AI. It absorbs data from multiple fields, weather terrain, radar intercepts, and makes real-time decisions, reroutes missions, and execute attacks autonomously, beating even NATO's current battlefield AI loops. The system is vehicle-based, which makes it mobile and easier to handle in hostile environment. The sensors integrated include 3D tactical radars, low-level lightweight radars, and Akash weapon system. This is beyond anything we have seen before, said many Pakistani defense experts, which is equivocally echoed by many across the globe.
Meanwhile, life in the border districts of Jammu and Kashmir, Rajasthan, Punjab and Gujarat witnessed a gradual return to normalcy. Helicopter services to the revered Sri Mata Vaishno Devi Shrine in Katara, Jammu and Kashmir have resumed after a week-long suspension. The helicopter operations are now running smoothly from Katra to Sanji Chat, with authorities reporting a significant rise in footfall over the past few days. Meanwhile, schools, markets and other commercial establishments across northern Indian state of Punjab have also reopened. The schools in the state have reopened after being closed for 6 days because of military tensions. The reopening is happening in stages, with several border villages still left. With schools reopening, some students expressed their joy over the move.
हाँ जी, स्कूल तो खुल चुके हैं. मतलब अभी मैं तो यही चाहता हूँ कि मतलब पाकिस्तान इंडिया की टेंशन ना हो, और 2 दिन से स्कूल खुल चुके हैं, और अगर ऐसा ना हो तो तभी बढ़िया है, क्योंकि स्कूल की फिर पढ़ाई भी पीछे रह जाती है.
स्कूल खुले हैं, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है. इतने दिन हो गए घर पे थे, ना तो पढ़ाई हो पा रही थी, कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा था. अब जैसे ही सब अच्छा शांत हुआ है तो स्कूल में आके हमें तो बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है.
And DD India's Amritpal Singh took stock of the ground situation in Punjab as normalcy returns to the state.
Life is limping back to normalcy in the border state of Punjab. Schools, educational institutions are opening up, except for a few border villages which are right on the border. Most districts have allowed the schools to reopen, though in the night there are blackouts, especially in the border villages for a few hours. These are voluntary blackouts. The district administration is appealing to the people to remain calm and not panic. If they sight any drones or any activity that's suspicious, they should report it to the police. Markets are opening up. There are markets are teeming with people. Commercial establishments are opening up. So life is slowly limping back to normalcy in Punjab. With cameraman Shubham, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Sahibzada Ajit Singh Nagar, Punjab.
In a significant nationwide outreach effort, An 11-day-long Tiranga Yatra is underway across the country. Muslim Rashtriya Manch on Wednesday organized a protest at Lal Chowk in Srinagar. Holding the tricolour in their hand, a group travelled all the way from Rajasthan to Srinagar, expressing their anger against the brutal killings of 26 innocent people at Pahalgam. Romesh Khajuria from Muslim Rashtriya Manch said the rally travelled from New Delhi and reached Pahalgam, where it paid tributes to the 26 martyrs. In Jharkhand's capital Ranchi, residents held a Tiranga Yatra with a 100-foot-long Indian tricolour. The Yatra was led by Minister of State for Defence Sanjay Seth to celebrate the Indian Army's success in Operation Sindoor and to reaffirm support to its fight against terrorism. In Manipur's capital Imphal, people enthusiastically participated in a Tiranga Yatra celebrating the Indian Army's courageous Operation Sindoor. Participating in the Yatra, former Minister Rajkumar Ranjan Singh expressed his pride in India's armed forces and credited Prime Minister Modi's leadership for the success of Operation Sindoor. In Itanagar, the capital of Arunachal Pradesh, locals organized a Tiranga Yatra where they carried the Indian flag and celebrated the valor of the Indian armed forces. India's cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday, approved the establishment of one more semiconductor unit under the India Semiconductor Mission. Information and Broadcasting Minister Ashwini Vaishnav announced that the 6th semiconductor unit will be set up in Jewar, Uttar Pradesh.
सेमीकंडक्टर यूनिट जो भारत का छठा सेमीकंडक्टर यूनिट बनेगा वो जेवर उत्तर प्रदेश में बन रहा है, उसको अप्रूव किया है। आप सब जानते हो कि अब तक 5 सेमीकंडक्टर के यूनिट्स इंडिया सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन के तहत अप्रूव होने के बाद में बहुत तेजी से उसमें कंस्ट्रक्शन चल रहा है उन पांचों में, जो कि HCL आप जानते हैं, हिंदुस्तान कंप्यूटर्स लिमिटेड, जो बहुत लंबे टाइम से भारत की एक हार्डवेयर में बड़ी कंपनी रही है, वो और फॉक्सकॉन जो दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरर है, उन दोनों का जॉइंट वेंचर है। दिस जॉइंट वेंचर विल मैन्युफैक्चर डिस्प्ले ड्राइवर चिप्स, और ये देश की रिक्वायरमेंट भी बहुत बड़ी है। सो डिस्प्ले ड्राइवर चिप इज वन ऑफ द की कंपोनेंट्स इन द एंटायर डिस्प्ले असेंबली। ये प्लांट लगेगा, इसमें 20,000 वेफर पर मंथ की कैपेसिटी होगी, और जो चिप्स इससे बन के निकलेगी 36 मिलियन चिप्स पर मंथ का इसका रहेगा।
Minister Vaishnav also underscored the significance of Operation Sindoor, calling it a crucial example of India's identity, the strength of its armed forces and the decisive leadership guiding the nation.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर एक बहुत ही भारत की एक अस्मिता, भारत के हमारे आर्म्ड फोर्सेस का जो रोल रहा है और जो एक डिसाइसिव लीडरशिप रही है और एक जो नई डॉक्ट्रिन बनी है, उसका एक बहुत बड़ा एग्जाम्पल है। उसके ऊपर कई प्रेस ब्रीफिंग्स यहाँ पे हो चुकी है, मैं उसके डिटेल्स में नहीं जाऊँगा, लेकिन वाकई ये देश के लिए एक सराहनीय चीज़।
A massive cache of arms and ammunition was recovered after the Indian Army eliminated 3 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir's Shopian under Operation Keller on Tuesday. Recoveries from the operation included an AK series rifles, large quantities of ammunition, grenades and other warlike stores. The mission shows the Indian Army's unwavering commitment to ending terrorism. Still to come on DD India Live. Trump visits Saudi Arabia, clinches a multi-billion-dollar arms deal. And Trump willing to strike a deal with Iran if its leaders change course. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. India has firmly rejected China's latest attempt to rename several locations in Arunachal Pradesh, reiterating that the state remains an integral part of the country. In response to media queries, Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randir Jaiswal said China has persisted with its vain and preposterous attempts to name places in the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh. Consistent with our principal position, we reject such attempts categorically. Creative naming will not alter the undeniable reality of that Arunachal Pradesh was, is and will always remain an integral and inalienable part of India, unquote. The Kremlin on Wednesday said that a Russian delegation would attend possible direct peace talks with Ukraine in Istanbul, Turkey, but did not disclose who would be there from Moscow side. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said the Russian delegation would wait for their Ukrainian counterparts to show up. Earlier, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he would participate in the talks in Istanbul on Thursday only if Russia's President Vladimir Putin is also present, aiming to agree on an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. He added only Putin could enact such a pause.
І не казали, що Путін не готовий прилітати в Анкару.
We will wait for the meeting with Putin in Turkiye. If Putin is ready to meet, not only for media purposes, but in real life, then on the level of leaders, we will do everything to agree on a ceasefire, because I must reach a deal about a ceasefire with him, because he's the only person to decide.
Zelensky also urged US President Donald Trump to help secure a meeting with Putin, cautioning that the US and European Union should impose strong sanctions if the talks failed to take place. European leaders, including Germany's new Chancellor Friedrich Merz, continue to put pressure on Russia to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine ahead of planned peace talks in Turkey. Germany reminded Moscow that any failure to join the ceasefire offered by Ukraine would bring further sanctions on Russia. For more, I'm joined by Thomas Sparrow from Deutsche Welle. Thomas, how confident are Germany and other European countries that these proposed peace talks could yield results?
There is a lot of stake, and that's clear from a German perspective, that's clear from a European perspective. Basically, what's at stake is ending a war in Ukraine that has been going on for several years and that has affected many people, mostly in Ukraine, but not only in Ukraine. There seems to be, however, a difference of approach between what European leaders would want and what we're hearing also from Russian President Vladimir Putin. From the European perspective, they would prefer a ceasefire to be implemented ahead of any negotiations, ahead of any talks. But that doesn't seem to be the proposal, or at least the priority coming from Moscow. And from that perspective, you can clearly say that European leaders, and that includes German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, are looking at these possible talks with skepticism as well. They see it as a first step that could help yield results, but it's only a first step in a long procedure. And as I stressed, they would prefer if a ceasefire, a 30-day ceasefire, would come ahead of talks and not necessarily afterwards.
Thomas, now Germany has a new government in place. How big of an issue is the Ukraine-Russia conflict for the new Chancellor?
Germany indeed has a new government in place, and in fact Friedrich Merz is right now as we speak talking to the German parliament and explaining his priorities. And as part of those priorities, Ukraine does play a significant role. It's obviously the case that the German government and the German Chancellor have also internal priorities when it comes to dealing with migration, when it comes to also improving the state of the German economy. But if you look at foreign policy, it's clear the case that Ukraine plays an important role. And when I mention Ukraine, it's not only about how to find a common agreement with Ukraine and Russia. It's not only about how to also help Ukrainian migrants that are here in the country, that have been here in the country now for several years. What also plays a role is also how Germany will deal with the United States, in particular when it comes to bridging differences, to bridging the gap in perspectives between how the European Union and how European leaders view the ongoing conflict and how it is seen by the Trump administration in the United States. So undoubtedly a big priority for the German government under new Chancellor Friedrich Merz.
Indeed, Thomas. Thank you. Thomas Sparrow reporting there from Berlin. Right, moving on to some other news that we are tracking here on DD India Live. US President Donald Trump made a surprise announcement that the US will lift all sanctions on the Syrian government and said Washington, D.C. was exploring the possibility of normalizing its ties with Damascus. He made the comments during a summit between the US and Gulf Arab nations.
The support of leaders in this room, and they're great leaders, you are. We are currently exploring normalizing relations with Syria's new government, as you know, beginning with my meeting with President Ahmed al-Shara and Secretary Rubio's meeting with the Syrian foreign minister in Turkey after discussing the situation with Crown Prince Mohammed and President Erdogan of Turkey. I am also ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria to give them a fresh start. It gives them a chance for greatness. The sanctions were really crippling, very powerful.
The Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman commended Trump's announcement, saying that it will open a new page towards growth and prosperity.
We would like to commend the decision taken by President Donald Trump yesterday to lift sanctions on the Syrian Arab Republic, which will alleviate the suffering of our brothers, the Syrian people, and open a new page towards growth and prosperity.
For his part, US President Donald Trump also met with Syria's president in Saudi Arabia. During the meeting, the US president urged Ahmed al-Shara to normalize ties with Israel, as per a White House spokesperson. Now, speaking at an investment summit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Trump bashed Iran, calling it the most destructive force in West Asia. Fresh talks between Iranian and US negotiations to resolve disputes over Tehran's nuclear program ended in Oman on Sunday, with further negotiations planned. Trump said he was willing to strike a new deal with Iran, but only if its leaders changed course. Trump warned that the United States will never allow it to obtain a nuclear weapon.
If you know that, they were a virtually bankrupt country because of what I did. They had no money for terror, they had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, and take all action required to stop the regime from ever having a nuclear weapon. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
All right, now take a look at what else is making news around the world. Gunfire echoed through Tripoli, Libya on Wednesday, coinciding with the government's announcement of a ceasefire. The clashes began late on Monday local time following the killing of a key militia leader. Although tensions briefly eased on Tuesday morning, violence flared up again overnight with intense battles shaking neighborhoods across the Libyan capital. On the first full day of the 2025 Cannes Film Festival, security was heightened in the city. The festival's main locations, the Palais de Festival et Congrès and the city of Cannes, are under increased security because of terrorist concerns. In Basel, Switzerland, the first 10 Eurovision 2025 finalists were selected after a vibrant show filled with stunning visuals and surprises. 15 countries performed at St. Jakobsfeld, but only 10 made it to the finals. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can get the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code that is now on your screen to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.